From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
He has the right to talk to a ministry if he wants that, and he claims he's a Christian. It would be very interesting to look into what kind of Christianity so far away from what I believe in, from my faith. But I'm going to give him a chance. And besides, he's a human being.
As Norway mourns the attacks of last Friday and the funerals begin for the 76 victims of the mass shooting and bombing, we talk with Johan Galtung, a Norwegian sociologist who's considered the father of peace studies. Then the Obama administration's deported more than 1 million immigrants in the last 2 years.
The problem is that the majority of people being deported are just working in the fields, washing dishes, doing jobs, and they're parents of American citizens. Certainly we can find a more humane, a more practical way of carrying out this enforcement.
We'll speak with Congressman Luis Gutierrez. He was arrested this week outside the White House protesting deportations. And a year ago today, parts of Arizona's SB 1070 anti-immigrant law went into effect. Many were arrested that day as well, among them Reverend Peter Morales, the first Latino president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. He goes on trial today in Phoenix. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. House Speaker John Boehner's delayed a vote on his debt ceiling plan after failing to gather enough Republican support. Boehner pulled his measure late Thursday night after it became clear hardline Republicans refused to abandon their demands for even deeper budget cuts. The bill would slash government spending by $917 billion over the next decade while raising the federal debt ceiling by $900 billion, enough for the U.S. to pay its bills through February. A congressional panel would also be mandated to find another $1.8 trillion in budget cuts before the end of the year. Democrats have vowed to defeat the measure in the Senate despite proposing similar levels of cuts. At a news conference, Boehner urged lawmakers to support his bill.
I've never said it was perfect. Nobody in my caucus believes it's perfect. But what this bill reflects is a sincere, honest effort to end this crisis in a bipartisan way, to send it to the Senate where it can receive action. Throughout this debate, we've promised the American people that we'd cut spending more than what we would increase the debt limit. And we also said that we would not entertain any increases in taxes.
Boehner is expected to attempt a new vote today. At the White House, Press Secretary Jay Carney said a compromise will have to be struck for a deal before Tuesday's deadline.
We remain confident that as these hours churn on and the days go by, that we will get to that point and that compromise will be reached. But we are not the only actor in this play, and we need to make sure that others understand the stakes and are willing to reach that compromise. We're confident they will.
Heavy clashes have erupted in the Somali capital of Mogadishu after African Union troops launched operations against the militant group al-Shabaab. The AU says it's trying to protect famine relief efforts from al-Shabaab, which has reportedly tried to block the delivery of aid after initially denying that a famine is taking place. At least 6 people were killed in the violence. At a Doctors Without Borders clinic in neighboring Kenya, a physician said medical workers are struggling to treat those needing care.
In the next few months, up to November at least, if not more, we expect more and more patients to come. Hopefully now we're getting a lot of response in terms of the medical care. The organizations that are here already putting more energy, more resources into this. But it's not just the health care that they need. These are people who are here because they don't have food. It's not that they became sick, then they are malnourished.
Norwegian police have released the identities of another 24 people killed by the self-confessed shooter and bomber Anders Behring Breivik as they ended their search for bodies around the island where he shot 68 of his 76 victims. Breivik's due to be questioned by the police for a second time today. Details have emerged on his claim to have bought high-capacity ammunition clips used in the attack from the United States. In his sprawling manifesto, Breivik said he ordered 10 30-round clips from an undisclosed U.S.-based supplier because they were considerably cheaper. The sale of high-capacity magazines had previously been illegal in the U.S. until the 1994 assault weapons ban expired in 2004. Speaking to Politico, Democratic Congress member Carolyn McCarthy of Long Island, New York, a sponsor of a bill to renew the magazine limit, said, quote, "There should be a lot of shame. We're sending a death warrant to other parts of the world," she said. We'll have more on the Norway shootings after headlines. The head of the Libyan rebels' military operations against Muammar Gaddafi has been killed in a targeted assassination. Abdel Fattah Yunus was shot dead on Thursday as he headed to appear before a rebel-organized judicial committee. The killing of the rebels' military commander comes as diplomatic efforts have made no headway. At the United Nations, the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs, Lynn Pascoe, told the Security Council a recent UN delegation to meet both sides of the Libya conflict had made no headway.
Both sides are willing to talk, but they are still emphasizing maximum demands at this point, and patience is clearly required before detailed discussions can begin. As we have said many times, a ceasefire tied to transitional arrangements which address the aspirations of the Libyan people is the only sustainable political solution to the crisis in Libya.
Over 40 Afghan civilians have been killed in a string of deadly attacks. At least 19 people were killed Thursday when suicide bombers hit government buildings in the southern Afghan province of Uruzgan. The dead included 12 young children. Another 35 people were wounded. It was the deadliest attack to hit southern Afghanistan in nearly 6 months. Meanwhile, at least 23 civilians have been killed in a pair of roadside bombings. 19 people were killed when their bus struck a mine, while another 4 people died in a similar incident aboard a tractor. Afghan civilians are enduring record levels of violence with over 1,400 people killed this year. Syrian forces have killed at least 4 protesters and arrested scores of others on the eve of another mass protest against President Bashar al-Assad. A convoy of tanks and armed forces reportedly attacked a crowd gathered in a central square in the city of Deir al-Zor. The rights group, Avaz, says it's identified nearly 3,000 people who've gone missing after being seized by Assad's troops, an average of 1 person per hour during the 4-month uprising. Syrian activists say up to 1,600 people have been killed during the crackdown. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas is calling for massive protests to support the Palestinian campaign for statehood recognition at the United Nations. The PA is seeking a vote in September that would recognize an independent Palestinian state in the occupied territories. Israel and the United States have launched a fierce campaign to thwart the effort. U.S. lawmakers have threatened to cut off aid to Palestinians if the bid goes ahead. Addressing a Palestinian Liberation Organization meeting, Abbas said wide-scale popular resistance is needed to support the statehood campaign.
Every day, we face what induces us to carry out popular resistance on a wide scale, and not in one place, and not by one group. We really want to do this. Let's do it. I insist on popular resistance, and I insist that it be an unarmed popular resistance.
In Guatemala, 4 soldiers have gone on trial for the 1982 massacre of an estimated 250 villagers by a U.S.-backed death squad. The case marks the first time members of Guatemala's armed forces have gone on trial for the Las Dos Eres massacre. The victims included women and children who were strangled, beaten with sledgehammers, and thrown down a well. In testimony this week, massacre survivors have described watching the brutal killings of their loved ones. Human rights activist Mario Polanco called for the trial of a former death squad member recently extradited from the United States.
Several members of the military have been arrested. Some are soldiers and others are army officers. One was even arrested in the United States and was extradited to Guatemala. We trust there will be a conviction and a sentencing in this case because it will be one of the few cases in which justice has been done in this country.
U.S. and North Korean diplomats have held preliminary meetings on whether to relaunch failed negotiations over the North Korean nuclear program. The State Department says the talks began in New York Thursday and will continue today. An AWOL U.S. Army soldier has been arrested and charged with planning to attack military personnel at Fort Hood, Texas. The military says police found bomb-making materials in Nasser Jassan Abdo's motel room after seeking to arrest him on separate charges. Killeen, Texas Police Chief Dennis Baldwin announced Abdo's arrest.
On July 27th, about 2:03 p.m., Killeen Police Department arrested Nasser Jassan Abdo, an AWOL soldier from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, on a warrant from the Fort Campbell Provost Marshal's office, charging him with possession of obscene material and being AWOL. During the investigation, suspicious materials were located in his hotel room. It is anticipated that federal charges will be filed.
The British judge overseeing the inquiry into phone hacking at Rupert Murdoch's media empire is appealing for the aid of journalists at the Murdoch-owned News of the World. Lord Justice Brian Levison said he needs the help of former Murdoch staffers to carry out his probe.
It may be tempting for a number of people to close ranks and suggest that the problem is or was local to a small group of journalists then operating the News of the World. But I would encourage all to take a wider picture of the public good and help me grapple with the length, width and depth of the problem as it exists.
The private military firm Blackwater has announced it's relocating to the Washington, D.C. area. The company, which now goes by the name Z Services, that's XE, will maintain operations elsewhere, including at its sprawling Mayock, North Carolina training facility. The New York City hotel maid, who's accused former International Monetary Fund chief Dominique Strass-Kahn of attempting to rape her, continues to speak out about her case. Addressing a news conference on Thursday, Nafissatou Diallo, an immigrant from the African nation of Guinea, said the case has taken a huge personal toll, but she's determined to bring it to light.
I promise her I'm going to be strong for you and for every other woman in the world. What happened to me, I don't want that to happen to any other woman, because this is just too much for me. It's too much for me and my daughter. And I'm here to thank everybody. I've been receiving a lot. People support me. I want to thank everybody. I thank everybody. I'll be fine asking God, why me? Because why me? But I just want to thank everybody.
11 people, including members of the clergy, were arrested on Capitol Hill Thursday, protesting the Republican budget plan to slash spending in return for raising the federal debt ceiling. The protesters occupied the center of the Capitol Rotunda for 30 minutes. Among the organizers was Common Cause and the Reverend Bob Edgar. And the labor rights activist Richard Chavez has died at the age of 81. Chavez helped his brother Cesar Chavez build the United Farm Workers into a major force in the struggle for labor and civil rights. Richard Chavez was the longtime partner of United Farm Workers co-founder Dolores Huerta, with whom they had 4 children. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.